Hi, I'm Bob Strait. If you haven't met me before, that's who I am. And my beautiful wife, Kathy, right here, giving me moral support and direction from the wings. I'm going to be talking about today is a unique wildlife tagging system that has been utilized by lots of different wildlife biologists, and something that we in North American Wood Ape Conservancy utilized in 2015 and into 2016. We're still trying to use this technology today. So first of all, what I'd like to show you is a news report that was aired in early 2016 by a local television station out of Tulsa, Channel 8 News.
We know it as a myth or a legend, Bigfoot, but now there's new research whether the creature exists in Oklahoma. Channel 8's Marine Words has a look at the science behind Bigfoot in this special report.
So what we have here is a little radio transmitter.
It's a little funny looking. It's pokey and sticky and being used to track Bigfoot.
Here's a little magnet, and the way it's set up is the magnet sticks to it like this, and we can leave it hanging out in the woods, you know, amongst the thick brush that we have there in southeastern Oklahoma during the summertime, and it just kind of looks like a totally organic thing. You see this, the little antenna right here? I mean, it looks like a pine needle or something.
Travis Lawrence and his other researchers hang these trackers at least 7 feet off the ground in the remote Ouachita Mountains, hoping it might stick onto Bigfoot, or what they call the wood ape.
When you see it, that's it.
Well, I never thought that I would see one.
I was still skeptical. At the time, I wasn't sure at all that these things existed, not until I had my own sighting.
Daryl Collier is an Air Force veteran who worked in intelligence. Alton Higgins worked as a wildlife biologist for more than 40 years. Brian Brown works at a PR firm in Minneapolis. These three and dozens of others call themselves the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. Their goal, to research and find evidence to prove that Bigfoot exists right here in Oklahoma.
There were so many people from so many walks of life who were having these encounters, many of which were not extraordinary encounters. They were just sort of quick visuals of a large hairy thing walking around where it shouldn't have been.
This is an aerial view of the Ouachita Mountains, where 63 researchers spent 1,200 hours surveying the area. Their report outlining some consistent behaviors they saw in the past 4 years.
I guess the analogy is that I had suddenly been just yanked into this room, this different room of reality now.
Collier says he saw Bigfoot jump across the creek here. That's one of 49 Bigfoot sightings in the report. But nothing is captured on camera, no matter how fancy the equipment or how often they've tried.
These cameras are associated, they associate these cameras with humans, and so therefore they stay away from them. We just don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know at this point, but that's why we continue to do this.
One big part of their research, hitting bats on trees, a way of communication they say is often used by larger apes.
30 seconds later, and it's happened a number of times, you'll hear a response from a quarter of a mile off in the woods.
It wasn't just the sounds of trees banging, but rocks being thrown. You can hear in this audio, they say this is rock rain hitting their roof. They found plenty of rocks in unusual places, and throwing rocks is something typically chimps do.
As compelling as we believe it to be, we don't present that as proof. That is not enough to establish this as a real animal.
But this band of believers says they're moving closer. Oh, before I forget, that tracker that we told you about, it was picked up and activated, so they'll be searching for it soon. Maureen Wirtz, Tulsa's Channel 8.
Good to know. Thanks, Maureen. You can find the entire report from the research on our website. Just go to k2l.com.
That's pretty exciting, huh? Yeah. Now this presentation is about a paper, scientific paper, that several gentlemen in our organization, the NAWAC, wrote. And I have a copy of it, and I don't really want to turn it loose. It hasn't been made public yet, but if you'd like to peruse it and read it, I'm certainly willing to let you take a look at it. These are just excerpts from that paper. The paper basically describes the process that we went through to create these tags, to deploy these tags, and how we tracked this tag in particular. This we call Tag 7. We deployed a total of 7 tags, And the one that was picked up by something, certainly, it was tag number 7. We had them numbered 1 through number 7. So this is tag 7 paper. And this again, this looks just like what you saw on that video there. And this is the finished product of this. We call it a nano tag. It's not really a nano tag, it's a wildlife tracking tag. This is not in its original form. This is in the form that we had it hanging on the string. This right here is a magnet that sticks to the back of the tag, tiny little magnet. And kind of tough to see, but there's little wires with loops and hoops on it. That was created by Mark McClurkin, a member of the board of directors of the NAWAC, created these little wires and these hooks and super glued them onto the magnet and onto the tag itself. This right here is, maybe some of y'all familiar with this bane of existence called the cuckleburr, and there's like a giant jelly bean and it'll get stuck in your hair, and it's the bane of horses, certainly for sure, horsetails, and they just become so embedded and so entangled it's almost impossible to get them out. So we thought of a lot of different things. Our idea was to try to get a tag on a creature, what we call a wood ape. How do we do that? Lots of discussion, lots of brainstorming. Well, what sticks to animals? Cuckleburrs stick to animals. And so through a couple of month process, we brainstormed this idea, and this cuckleburr has been, and in the paper there's more detailed photos. This is just a brief overview. So that we would not spread this noxious weed throughout the Ouachita Mountains. We sliced them open, Mark did actually, and took out all the little seed pods. This is just a carrier for the seeds. We scooped it all out, and I think he sterilized it, made sure that there was nothing sticking to it, and then used this as the vehicle. Super glued the tracking tag inside this burr, leaving only the area with the magnet exposed. And so this was actually, this antenna is part of the device. These rings right here are super glued on. Now, in order to, kind of tough to see right there, in order to make that super sticky, to make sure that it adhered, we used, Mark tried many different types of glue, adhesive devices to try to get it to stick to the fur initially so that it would have time to become extremely embedded into the fur. What we came up with was the easiest, or the best substance was, you seen these sticky traps? Like for mice and rats, a rat trap, a sticky pad. You can actually dig that out of the trap. It stays sticky for a long, long period of time. And actually, if you wanted to get it off of something, if you have a mouse or a rat stuck to one of these and you suddenly have a change of heart and you want to get it off, use vegetable oil and it comes right off. So it's really unique. So that if we found the tag detached from the animal and had hair on it, we were going to be able to get the hair off. So this is covered on the spines with rat trap glue, with globs of it around there. Now this is how it looks when it's deployed. This is a close-up. This is hanging on a static string hung across, and then this is also a static string, but it's only tied, it's anchored at one end, it doesn't go all the way through. This goes all the way through and it's just hanging on that string. This is like a sewing thread, black sewing thread, and here they are deploying it. These are clips out of the video. This method was first suggested by a member of our group, John Perry, who's a wildlife biologist out of the state of Maine. He's used this technology to track all types of wildlife. These small tags are made specifically for reptiles, turtles, and the small birds, and we adapted it for our use. So next, please. This is what it looks like when it's deployed, hanging in the natural environment. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. And if you've ever been in the Ouachitas in southeast Oklahoma, there's a time of year that every spider known to mankind hatches and breeds. And you can't walk more than 30, 40 feet without running through a web. And these giant orb spiders, like from Charlotte's Web, are everywhere. So hiking down the trails, carry a stick, wave it out in front of you. And anyway, this sort of just, I mean, if you even notice it, I mean, you're focused on it right there, and we've got it framed such, but if it was over here, you would probably never even see it. There are times that we went to go check these tags on a daily basis that we knew where they were, and we still had trouble finding them. So next, please. Okay, so this paper is also geared towards showing the results, making sense of the results. We're able to tag something, to follow it, to track it with our radio receiver, and how to make sense of the results is something that another NAWAC member who actually spoke here wasn't able to make it this year, Dr. Angelo Caparella, cited this paper of the home range analysis using radio tracking techniques and how it applies to mammals. So that's what we used as a template for trying to interpret our results. Next, please. So just a couple of photos of how this technology looks, how it works, some of the components involved. So when that type of radio tag is activated, it sends out a pulse, a radio pulse, real light. It's very small, so it's not real strong, and over flat water, it'll barely go about 1 kilometer. But, so you have to be fairly close, all right, because it's tiny, it's not real powerful, and it's designed to last 9 to 10 months battery life. So this is basically the setup that you have to use when you are searching for that tag. You hold the antenna flat, and you're looking at a plane, and you have to circle it around. It's not completely omnidirectional. This helps you sort of hone in on it, if you will. And it produces an audible beep. It's like a pulse. And you can hear the beep if you wear headphones, or there's a little speaker, and it also gives a little digital printout on the radio receiver itself. So next, please. So if you're wondering where you can get a hold of this technology, the devices that we use were from Advanced Telemetry Systems out of Santee, Minnesota. And they have a website, and you can go there, and that's actually where I got these next several photographs, the one preceding and the next one as well. So this right here is an example of then there are many choices for these little radio tags. The model we used was a R1680, R1680. And they all look very, very similar. What the differences is in the size and the weight and the battery size and weight. Again, the longer the battery life, the heavier their device is going to be. So you have a fine line between extended range. You can get a very tiny one. The battery is only going to last about 30 days. We wanted as long a duration as possible, and ours were designed to last 9 to 10 months. And so that's why the smart people in the group, not people like me, chose the ones that they did. Next, please. And this is just an example of a radio receiver. It's completely programmable. I know it's a little bit tough to see there, but there are bars that slide across, and when you catch a radio signal, they pulse. So the more bars you have, the stronger the signal. You can, much like a metal detector, you can adjust the sensitivity as well. So there's a little bit of a learning curve to using this. Just like using a metal detector, it's a little bit of a learning curve. You at first look for the signal using the highest sensitivity, and you get strong hits, and then you continually lower the sensitivity and direction, and that gives you the fine tuning, if you will, of it. So and this is programmable. Each one of those radio tags had a different radio frequency. So we had to program in, well actually we had the company do it for us, but you can do it. But like I say, it's a huge learning curve. And I suggest that if you go to use this technology, that you practice with it. And we did, and we sacrificed a tag and used it as a training tag. It's actually one that was semi-defective, that the magnet kept falling off of it and it was going to beep all the time anyway. So we said, look, if we're going to have trouble with it, let's not put it in the field. Let's just use that as a sacrifice. And we would go hide it like an Easter egg hunt and go, okay, boy, yeah, go find it, fetch. Yeah, and so that's the kind of stuff that we did. So you have to scan through all the different frequencies. You can put it on scan, or you can lock it in on one separate frequency. And this is it in a waterproof carrying case. And right at the time, we only had one of those. We got a loaner from ATS, and then we ended up purchasing a second one. So we have two of these radio receivers, and they run on AA batteries, and then a pretty long battery life as well. So next, please. This is an omnidirectional antenna. This is the kind of antenna that we have on a mast, a radio mast that we've erected at our campsite. And so it will pick up, we run one receiver running 24 hours a day. And if we get a hit, we keep it on an audible beep, which you don't have to have an audible beep, but we do, so that we're sitting around camp or we're having dinner or something like that, and the thing starts beeping, we know there's a tag in the area that's been deployed. We get these for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes a heavy storm will blow up and the magnet will become detached from the tag. So this is an omnidirectional antenna. Next, please. Oh, the receiver that we use, that was a model 410, model 410. This is again, available on their website. This is a 3-element Yagi antenna, directional antenna. And again, you hook up a coax cable to it and it goes directly to the radio receiver. This folds flat for easy transport and storage. And you, like I say, you hold it flat, horizontal. So that's a 3-element, that's what we started with. Next, please. And then we advanced to a 5-element, and a little more expensive and a little more sensitive, but again, it is utilized the same way. So that's a Yagi 5-element, all available on their website. Next, please. All right, well, the next few slides kind of contain this same paragraph, but it just basically summarizes that this is designed for people to undertake a radio tracking study and discussion of the problems they're likely to encounter. We're not saying that it's a comprehensive treatment of all the potential problems, but what to aim for. And since radio tracking is merely a technique for providing data and not at the end itself, certainly, it's not a specimen, it's not a creature, it's just a way of providing data. And so when you start this, you want to have clear-cut objectives, have a set trial period of data collection, and understand the limitations of the data that you collect, and then that the full presentation at the end will greatly improve the value of your tracking studies. Now, only by addressing these points that the full potential of radio tracking as a scientific study technique will be realized. So, next please. So the conclusions, and since the radio, now this is, we're highlighting some of the finer points in this paragraph here. Since the radio tracking is merely a technique for providing data, so it's merely a data technique. It's certainly a unique type tagging system. We wanted to have an animal, tag an animal. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to tag an animal. And how do we do that? And then I mean, it's not like, I mean, we had lots of ideas. Believe me. Oh, let's put out a mirror ball and put a tag in there. It's like, I don't know, maybe they'll carry one around for a few minutes and drop it or poop on it. I don't know what they'll do with it, you know what I mean? And well, let's put it in a ham sandwich. Well, I don't want to be one finding that 2 days later. So I don't know, you know? I mean, so we ran the whole gambit of how do we utilize this. So for us, the data that we derived from this is just another form of confirmation that the species of wood ape exists. Next, please. So when you start something like this, like I said, you have to have clear-cut objectives. What is it you're trying to do? So what are our objectives? Next, please. So developing the new techniques for tagging an animal without capturing it. I mean, if we're going to capture a Bigfoot and then put a tag on it, you wouldn't be releasing it. It's like, you know, we're going to take pictures and, you know, take them to the zoo and stuff. Just a visit, you know. They might like it. I don't know. Yeah, and so follow it, pursue it. Good luck there, by the way. Don't know if you've ever seen. A little tough to catch, are they, Bob?
Yes, sir. Right on, Bob.
But we can document their movements. I bet you would have liked to have had a tag on Patty after she...
Yes, sir. But I think she would have just itched it right off.
Oh, you think she would have itched it right off? Well, I know, she might have.
When she turned and winked at me, that meant that she was serious.
When she turned and winked at you?
Oh, yeah, when she, you guys can all see that famous turn. When she turned and winked at me, that meant she was serious.
Yeah.
Wanted me to follow her, but I couldn't. She moved too fast.
Yeah. Well, Bob, all the women wink at you, you know. Well, document their movements. And assess their home range. So those are some of our objectives in doing this. Next, please. Now, in the area that we did our trial studies, that is our research area, we came across these ladies quite by accident. They work with a university in Oklahoma, and they are doing bear studies. And they radio track bears. They put radio collars on bears and they track their home range and they document their movements, and they're doing the same type of thing with bears that we were attempting to do with apes. And this right here shows, this was their snare tree. This is a wire snare right there. They would bait it, they would put a foot snare on there, and these big old bears would come up and take the bait and snare them. And these ladies came by a couple times a day to check their snares. And right here you can see the cable snare hanging down from the tree, and then they would dart and tranquilize the bear and take really good measurements and doing some stuff with the bears that we couldn't do with the apes. So we wanted to find out the sex, the weight, the overall health, you know, and possibly, you know, its place in their social structure. And this was done in Ouachita's. So, but of course they had to be, you know, tracked in order for them to be able to put that collar on. So we had to have a trial period of data collection. And the duration of the study period, there are some limitations to your study period. And certainly the biggest one is the duration of the battery life. And now, like you were saying, Bob, we were very apprehensive that if we did get a burr on a tag on an animal, that they weren't just going to pull it off. But we figured the longer we had it on there, the better chance it was going to be that it was going to stay.
Absolutely.
Now, this was an idea put forth by Mark McClurkin, the gentleman who actually put our tags together. He had a visual sighting in Area X of an individual creature that had big, what do you call them? Dreadlocks. And what did I point at you? Southern California surfer. I don't know, dude. I don't point at me, man. Had some dreadlock looking type hair, and thought, man, if we can get a bird in that's probably going to stay for the duration of the battery life. So remember, like I said, the longer the battery life, the heavier it is, the larger the transmitter, and the heavier it is. So, and of course, the tag had to remain attached to the animal the entire time as well. So you have to understand your limitations of the information that you get. So you don't get the information about that they do with the bears about the gender, size, except for, of course, the height of the tag. And I'm going to show you exactly how we deploy that here in just a second. Health, social status, and again, the learning curve that is the interpreting the radio telemetry results that we get, how to operate the equipment, how to operate the antennas, when to do it, where to do it, and you know, like I say, just using the radio receiver and interpreting the results. Sometimes there's a learning curve and you need to practice with it, trust me. And then of course the sample size. How many times do you actually locate the animal? This thing is moving and they move fast, and there's a limited range on these signals. So you have to keep moving as well. And believe me, you cannot keep up with it. It's not gonna happen. It's not. And then we didn't have any data in the fall, unfortunately. It was tagged, and I'll go through this here. It was tagged, and then there was a series of 2.5 months where we had no contact with it at all. We had contact with it right after the tag disappeared, but for several months after that, we had no contact. We were at a loss as to exactly what happened. We figured it had pulled it off. We honestly did, but we didn't know where the tag was, because we wanted to find the tag. If the tag is off, we wanted to find it because hopefully it had some hair stuck to it. We thought it's, you know, win-win either way, all right?
Needle in a haystack.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. All right, so we'll talk about tags here. Now, in late July, our group deployed a total of 7 tags. These tags aren't cheap, and we pay for it ourselves. We don't get funding, we don't get grants. Those are about 160 bucks a piece.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, tag 7 was activated on August 28, 2015. It was found about just shortly after 8 p.m. It had been checked earlier in that day, and it was our standard protocol to visually check each tag every day, and try not to make a big deal out of it. You don't, in case the creatures are watching you and go over and poke at it. No, it's like we set it up and we stayed away. So we would walk by and we would just look, and just make sure it was there, and it was in our field logs. Check them every day. We finally lost contact with that tag 7 on June the 29th, 2016. So it lasted 10 months. And we knew that it was pretty much going to be dying because our undeployed tags, the tags we still had in our possession, the batteries were going dead and they were dropping one by one. And tag 7 was, even though it was activated, was one of the last ones to die out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And along those lines, this is where we deployed them, and this is actually pretty interesting. Now, some of the places that we tagged, I'll talk about in a second. The adventures that we had trying to find these tags, and when we actually did get a hit. and some of the things that happened there. But this is a satellite aerial view out of Google Earth, out of in the wintertime, and of the tag deployments. And this is, don't know if you were here a couple of years ago, I gave a presentation, and it's available on the NAWAC website, called the Ouachita Project Monograph. Extensive paper, just a culmination of 5 years of study in our area that we call Area X. And this right here was our, what you want to call our home base, and it's a series of 4 cabins here. And we stayed primarily, early on, they stayed in this cabin and operated for about 5 years, Operation Forest Vigil, where they had 25 camera traps, Reconnex set out all over the place. We captured lots of photos of bears and lots of other, but they never captured any photographs of what you would call Bigfoot. And we moved into this cabin here, and then this one right here is the primary source of activity. Very, very steep mountainside right up on the north side of that. And this is where we would pull all the rocks off the roof of that cabin. So these stars are the locations of where we had the tags. And they're all in fairly close proximity. And how we determined where to put the tags, they weren't just hung up willy-nilly. We, for 3 years prior to that, our chairman, Alton Higgins, had devised a scheme to try and track the movements of where they're moving through. Let me put it that way. Their entrance, because they would certainly come close to the cabins at night and also while we weren't there. And so he had this method of, they're called string traps. And he would tie a black sewing thread around a stationary tree. First of all, the locations he would do this is where sightings had been made. Like, I saw one right over there, that sort of thing. And we've had 47 visuals in Area X. And he would choose potential access routes and trails, and he would take a sewing thread and he would tie it at a height of 7.5 feet, which was about just as far as he could reach just by standing and putting it over his head. Tie it snug on one tree, stretch it out, wrap it around another tree, but not tie it. And it's kind of tricky to twist it tight enough to keep it to stay, but yet be able to unravel if something moved through it. And did that for 3 years. We had a pretty good pattern of movement. If something at a height of 7.5 feet goes through that string, and then it will drag it one direction. So not only would we be able to see where something came through, but the direction of travel, because it would hang and snag up on brush on the other side. These are the areas that we had identified as potential good areas to put the tags. Yeah, Alton Higgins started that 2012. Next, please. This is the actual tree where tag 7 was attached, and Robert Taylor there, one of the pilots in our group, standing there demonstrating at the level the string trap was set. Again, 7.5 feet, and we made sure that it was tall enough so none of our members are 7.5 feet. So any indigenous wildlife or any other people walking through there are not going to hit it. So that is the actual tree right there. That's in the winter time, and that's with all the leaves dead and down, of course. Next, please. So this is kind of how it looks when it's set up. You have the stationary tree right here, tied off, and goes straight through, runs through the top ring attached to the tag, not the magnet, and goes to another tree and loosely wrapped around there. The magnet then, of course, is on a shorter thread, very thin black sewing thread, so that it was really difficult to see, attached to the magnet. As soon as the magnet becomes detached from the tag, the tag starts beeping. It doesn't beep otherwise, not unless it's defective. So next, please. So the above is how it originally looked, and then in August when it was deployed, this is how it looked. Actually, the thread was broken, and it was broken, so it appears as though whatever went through there broke it right here. That's where it was broken. It wasn't broken here. So it wasn't like something grabbed this and pulled it down. We imagined that it walked through here and then fell off the string, and then this string drug it across the animal, which is exactly what we wanted to have happen, and maybe even go on their back, which would be a more difficult place for them to get at it, to remove it, and deploy it, and start beeping. Yeah, next please. So there's a couple of different methods that you can use to track these tags. One is the continuous, basically that you follow it around and checking it every 5-10 minutes, and that's what they do with like wolves and coyotes and lots of other large animals, where it's easier. Not trying to get away from you as much, and they're kind of hanging out in the area. So continuous and discontinuous, which is what we used, because you are actually trying to locate it. Every attempt you have to try and locate it. You don't know where to look, so you start looking in the last area that you found it in. So that was our only real option. Next please. So this is overall view of the elliptical area of the area that we were looking for the tag. This is a very, very rugged area of the Ouachita Mountains in southeast Oklahoma. And if you've never been there in the summertime, it gets like some areas close to 80 inches of rain, and it's like thick like Cambodia, and every single thing there wants to kill you. Everything. Every poisonous snake in North America is there. Every poisonous spider is there. Every poisonous plant there. Everything that's got a gnarly spine, a thorn, is there. And it's thick. Yeah, and I'm not bitter about it. Scar here. Anyway, that's what it looks like from a map. There. Yes. Okay. And got the tag. I was deployed. Where are we? It was right down in that area there.
And the letters.
Huh?
The dates.
Oh yeah, right. That's it right there. That's where it was first deployed. 8/25/15. So this encompasses the area that the tags of our locations of where we located the tags. So it started out there, and as you're going to see, it came back there.
Well, the letters corresponds with the dates where you got hits on tag 7.
Right, yes, all of these, which we're going to show you. The next slide doesn't have a map, so that's the dates without the map. So it starts out right down here, and then it was 2.5 months later where we found it. Where is it? Right up there. Yeah, January. So it went from there to there. Yeah, and then went back. Oh, in December. I'm sorry, you're right. No, that was the first place we found it. You're right. And then over here. Yes. Oh, and let me tell you about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, excellent coffee, by the way. That we tried. These are just the times that we found it. These are not the times that we looked for it, because we looked for it many times. We initially got a hit from that night, and it was after dark, and they decided, well, it's in the area, let's go in the daylight and we can have a full day's chase. In hindsight, probably wasn't such a good idea because they couldn't find it the next day, nor for the next 3 months.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so we didn't know what happened to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we just didn't know. So how we found it, again, John Perry, who suggested the whole thing to begin with, he goes, you got to get in the air. And so we did. We have several pilots in the group. We have a private plane. One of them has a private plane. And they got one of those omnidirectional antennas and attached it to the plane. And they went up and down that valley, up and down that valley. Again, in our small human minds, thinking, well, this is where they got to be. And then they were running out of daylight, running out of fuel. They said, you know what? Let's just take a chance. Let's just start making big, giant circles, bigger every time. And they found it. And they found it 6 miles away.
Oh, my
Yeah, and they were pretty excited. And so we went up there with ground teams and we couldn't find it. So it wasn't until January the 2nd that we were able to get the plane up again and with ground teams and the plane, and we found it again and located it and tried to chase it on foot. No bueno, ain't gonna happen. Two ground teams trying to triangulate with antennas on the ground, antenna in the air, plane flying over and figure eight going, it's right here, guys on the radio, it's right here, it's right here. Couldn't see it, could hear the radio tag. Nope. Nope. I actually was, where's my tracking? It's June.
Go more.
To the left? June 12th. June 12th. Right in there somewhere. Oh, right there. That's where me and my Jay, who was Kathy and I spent 2 weeks there in June, and Jay and I went out in his Jeep and drove around all day running the ridges, and we finally got a hit right here. Now, 2 days earlier, the reason we went back there, because a couple of days earlier, before we got there, a team had located the tag over in that area there, and they encountered 4 people on horseback who were running dogs. Don't know whether they were training them for hogs, bear, whatever it is, but the dogs got onto something and they chased it down a valley, and the people on horseback finally called them back, and during that time that tag moved an incredible distance. So that's where we went back to the same area and we located it, and it was down, it's in the paper, it was down in the valley, and it was clearly moving up the hillside, and over a period of just a few minutes it climbed a good 500 feet in elevation and disappeared over the ridge. Yeah. So it was moving fast through very difficult terrain, very thick, very heavy vegetation. Okay, now real quick, and we'll get to, next please. Just a couple now, I know what you're thinking. So Bob, it was attached to a bear. Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe, and we thought of that because there are bear in the area, right? It was the only other animal that we thought that it had any possibility of. So, all right, let's talk about bears for a second. So we look at a study from Arkansas.
7.5 feet.
Yeah, 7.5 feet. So it would have to be a tall bear. Well, it didn't get it on its head. It would have to stand up and swat it. And then what are the odds it's going to keep it on its paw, something it can bite off for 10 months? So anyway, we're trying to be scientific about this, not just go, shut up. That's why they don't put me in charge of this stuff. Yeah, your mama. So we looked at studies done in the area, and right here, annual home ranges of 4 adult males in Arkansas. This study was a total of different methods, and I'll show you different methods that they use to determine this. 22 square miles. 22 square miles. That's for males. Adult females they tracked had a much smaller range of 3 square miles. 3 square miles. Next, please. Now there's some software that you can use to how they determined that home range, and there's a couple of 2 or 3 different methods actually. And there is something, and this is why we get people in this, smart people like my wife, who know a lot, who went to school, who didn't get expelled like me. I made that up. Are you guys making sure you're still awake? This method called minimum convex polygon. This is like a big loopy thing, I call it, you know, it's a minimum convex polygon. Another method is the kernel density estimate. There's another one called the ellipse method as well. And the ellipse encompasses the biggest area. So those are the two methods, and it's a computer program called Ranges 9. Ranges 9. Next, please. So that was Arkansas talked about. This is Oklahoma right here. And this is some of the people that we encountered, those graduate students that we encountered who were snagging the bears. And this is a study that they have done. So in their study, in determining the home range for the Ouachita Mountains in the exact same area that we were doing our study in, using the minimum, this is for female bears, using the minimum convex polygon, it was 5.6 square miles. Using the adaptive kernel method, and these are just like algorithms that the computer program uses, using the adaptive kernel method is 8.1 square miles. Next, please. So for our Tag 7, the Ranges 9 software for Tag 7, using the adaptive kernel method at 42.7 square miles, which is many times larger than the bears. Now for the ellipse method, actually, for the one that they didn't use for the bears, but another one that's available in the program, it showed Tag 7 range as 71.5 square miles. Yeah. Little mama. All right, next please. So this is going to, we're using this convex method, this minimum convex polygon method. This is, we've broken it down into the winter range. This is where we got the hits. These are just from our hits, radio tag hits. Spring and the summer, which is where it was deployed, right here, and which is where our last hit was right there. So you have to, of course, imagine if these are where we got the hits, that it encompasses all of this area. And it could vary from year to year as well, depending on, you know, the cover, or they're following, you know, the different nut-bearing trees that they're following, the beech trees, the hickory, the oak, acorns, all of that. So, next, please. So we got all this information. Now, what do we do with it? I'm here, I don't know, I'll ask you, what do we do with this information? Yes, sir.
Start correlating it with vegetation patterns, like you're just saying, movements of other animals.
Right.
Do what you're doing, draft it all up.
Right, start studying the ecosystem, the environment, and how what we found, you know, specifically applies to that. Now, one thing that I'll tell you on that winter range, what we found, that was in an area of heavy pines, pine trees. It was the only place that was green in the wintertime. You saw the picture of, with Robert holding his hand up like that, how sparse of everything. Maybe good for gathering nuts, not so good for hiding. So maybe now we know where to look at different times of year.
Yeah. That's
We're
very
starting to
good.
learn a little bit about this thing.
Yeah.
Now you have to, again, imagine that we actually got the tag on an ape, a Bigfoot, forest hoo-hoo, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. We tagged it, right? Yes.
Yeah, well, if you've got an estimated time of when that's going to expire, could you plant another one? Like once you figure out if it comes back around summertime at the same exact, can you set up some more traps and get like a continuous type of thing?
I like the way you think.
Well,
I like the way you
yeah.
think. Yes. Yes, and I like that. And what she's saying is, you know where to look. Not only look for them to deploy more tags. Absolutely. Again, we're hindered by time and resources. But right now, we do have 7 more tags hanging in trees right now. So know that's
Bob, do
happening.
you have a wind or any limbs falling? Have some problem with that? The wind.
We do have tags become dislodged. Here and there. Yes, big storms come up and a limb will fall, or a bird will fly through it, or we don't know what, and become deployed, and we'll be sitting, or our teams will be sitting at the base camp, and it'll start beeping, and they'll get there, and they'll go out there, and they'll check it, and it's on the ground.
Yeah.
We've had a couple this season already on the ground.
But at least you can find them there.
You can find them. You got an antenna, there it is.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and you can, and here's another key. If they hit the ground, they blend right in with the litter. So you've got to be prepared. Either drag that antenna across the ground, put it on its lowest sensitivity and drag it across the ground, or have a metal detector, or even a big magnet like a shop magnet.
Yeah.
Because it's magnetic and
it's got a magnet on it.
Yeah, it's got a magnet on it. It'll pick it up. Well, the magnet won't be on it, because otherwise it wouldn't be beeping.
Right.
But it got knocked off. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the drone technology, that's improving all the time. Is there any option in terms of the range of drones to use it for detection?
Right. Oh, now that's a good question. Drone detection. And we do have some members with drones in our group, and they have tried that. The problem with doing that is you have your limitations of you are on the ground with your antenna, and so all you have is a rough distance and a general direction. And because we don't have the drones that are powerful enough to carry an antenna and a battery and a receiver and all that kind of stuff, but man, we would sure love to do that. And that's the next step on doing something like this. Absolutely. Yeah. And then all of this opens up the world of possibilities. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Are the prices for the receivers and the antennas on the website?
The prices are on their website. Well, actually it says contact for quote, but I can tell you that the receiver that we used, about $500 or $600. The transmitter tags, about $150, $160, and the antennas, the cheaper ones, in the $100 range, and the 5, element is a little more than that. I don't pay the bills. I just give them my hard-earned money, and then kind of go. Oh yeah. About $3,000 would get you set up, But again, remember that those tags are perishable.
Oh,
Yeah. But the transmitters aren't. You just keep putting batteries on. So, any way we could improve the technique? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You're using a Yagi, and I would call what you're doing is a fox hunt, which is a term that amateur radio operators use when they want to find something. They use a fox hunt, which is the Yagi, and it's very directional.
Yeah.
But you can use APRS, which will send out a signal that you can pick up, and you don't need.
Thank you for the presentation. That was great, Captain.
That's APRS is amateur, amateur radio, personal senders or something like that, but it's called the APRS.
APRS.
And it's a tracking. Like, I just went on a trip with my
Well, that's something that I'll tell them to look into, APRS.
Yeah, and you can, it's called Raspberry Pi, which is a computer chip, little tiny thing. And you use that to send.
Oh, okay, so it sends out radio signals. It's picked up by a receiver.
Yep.
Completely separate from the cell phone network.
It'll do it every 5 minutes, or you set it up for how often you want it to signal.
Okay, I like that. We'll get that information from you a little bit later.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other? Go.
Is there a way that you can set up a semi-permanent grid of detectors that could be dormant until they're turned on by radio signal, so that at any time you could actually, in a very large area then, just hit the on button and they would all slightly overlap each other's range and you could detect in a very large area?
Yeah, there probably is, but that sounds pretty expensive to me, what you just described.
Yep.
And also it's limited on the range of the tag itself in that heavy terrain. You know, if you get a quarter mile out of it, you know, you're doing pretty good. That's why we would go to ridge tops and we would try to get over the canopy, and then we would have, you know, fairly good success that way. But directional line of sight through the heavy brush, man, a quarter of a mile you're doing pretty good. That's what we figured. What we determined, and we determined that through actually taking our practice tag and walking it out through the different types of terrain. And so that's how we got our estimations. Yes, sir. Am I done?
I may have missed it. Did you say what the manufacturer is?
Yes, sir. I certainly did. Could you run back there for that? And that's a good point. Let me put that back up there again. So anybody who is interested in contacting them, they have a website. And you can write down that information, about 4 more slides. Right there, Advanced Telemetry Systems. And that's www.atstrack.com. Advanced Telemetry. Tell them Bob sent you. Yes. Yeah. Tell them to send me a hat and a t-shirt. Yes, sir.
So you said you had 47 member sightings.
Yes.
Have you overlaid that data with this data?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, we've got one dude who's really smart. Oh, we've got a lot of people in our group who's really smart. But he has what do we call it? Fort. Anyway.
It's like a GIS.
Yeah, GIS layers. Yes, we have GIS layers, and he's all on top of that. Oh yeah.
That corresponds
oh
to
yeah.
sightings with the,
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The seasonal sightings.
Yes. Yes. He's GIS layering everything. Wood knocks, rock throws, vocalizations, tag deployment, all this kind of stuff, and we are starting to see some patterns. Any other questions? Anybody have spare cookies?
I got a whole
Yeah.
box I'm bringing
Yes.
to
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. How about that? Props. He said we appreciate your effort. How about that? Thank you very much. I appreciate you saying so.
Round of applause.
Now that's science right there. That's using technology to our advantage, and that's a great presentation. Thank you.